It's August 2nd, 2019, and you're watching Battleground. I think I should have said Ezra Levent's Battleground, because that's what the title card says. But obviously, Ezra is not here. He is in, what kind of a place can I call Baltimore that's not too vulgar? But he is indeed in Baltimore, Maryland, and he'll be filing a report soon, folks. So you have me to deal with, David Menzies, and of course, my lovely co-host, Sheila Gunn Reid in Alberta. Happy afternoon to you, Sheila.
Hey, David. How's it going? For those of you who haven't ever tuned into Battleground before, this is a chance for our viewers at home to interact with us in real time. You can pose questions to us in something called a super chat. We get some of the money. YouTube takes some of the money. And if you, give us a few bucks in there, it'll highlight your question or comment to us, and I'll see it out of the corner of my eye, and we'll read it on air and answer any questions that you might have to pose to me and David.
Absolutely, Sheila, and that's a good point, folks. You know, we don't have the $1.5 billion CBC welfare check on an annual basis. We aren't in line for the $600 million Justin Trudeau stenographer bailout. So we have to hustle for our money. We count on you, our beloved audience. And, Sheila, no donation is too small, right? I mean, it's a cumulative effect. If everyone gives a buck or three, it all adds up, and we appreciate anything. This is your turn to speak, Sheila. Okay.
Sorry, my internet just briefly cut out there for a second. But yeah, every little bit helps. It's how we keep the lights on. We don't get money from the federal government. We wouldn't take it even if they offered it. We're crowdfunded every single day by supporters like everybody at home. And just let me take this opportunity now that we're talking about crowdfunding. I got to tell you, I'm so overwhelmed. Every single day I go to the SaveSheila.com website. That's where we're crowdfunding to cover my legal costs in my battle with the Alberta government, who is investigating me for writing an illegal book called Stop Notley during the election campaign. I go there every day, and I see big donations, little donations, just people throwing money behind us because we're out there fighting for freedom. And it's very I'm not an emotional person, really, but it's sort of emotional when you get these messages from people saying, you covered this story and nobody else would, or you came to my community when nobody else would. And it's a good chance for us to reflect on just the impact we make in people's lives. It's a job for sure. I mean, we work hard. It's a full-time job for both of us, but we're telling the stories that nobody else will. And I think that's been a good reminder over the last week or so as we're crowdfunding to cover my legal bills. Oh,
absolutely, Sheila. And by the way, folks, if you're unfamiliar with what Sheila is referring to, please, by all means, watch her videos. This is our ongoing fight. We're up to, I believe, Sheila, more than $48,000 in legal fees, all for the heinous crime of Sheila Gunn Reid having the temerity to write a negative book about Rachel Notley. This is an Alberta elections bureaucracy that is coming after her. The head honcho on the trail is a disgraced ex-cop, and who, by the way, Sheila, I think you've mentioned this in your videos, even though we've lawyered up on this, we've had no choice, was making, I don't know if he's still making, personal calls to you when he should be putting his concerns in writing and at least dealing with your lawyer. Well, what is the latest on that, by the way?
Yeah, since the video went live where I take 20 minutes to show everybody my evidence and my interaction with my emails, my phone calls with the investigators, he hasn't contacted me personally. I think maybe now he's getting the hint that I have a lawyer and he should be calling him. And moreover, to your point about the legal fees, I think we just got another bill, and now that puts the total up near $60,000 in 3 months just to keep the investigators away from me. And we really haven't even yet begun to fight. So, I mean, it's going to be probably at least double that. They're absolutely 100% going to be levying fines against me for not producing my emails and my personal planning documents and editorial emails around the book. Anything that touches on the book and the timing of the book, they want all that. So in a free country, these investigators want my personal emails about a book I was writing. I mean, it's almost like we lost the Cold War, and to some extent maybe we did. If this sort of stuff can creep into our lives and into our government, despite the Charter of Rights and Freedoms saying that it can't.
It is egregious, and I mean, it's making Alberta look more like the People's Democratic Republic of North Korea than a Canadian province. So I wish you well on that, Sheila. And by the way, folks, if any of you can help out with Sheila's fight, because the unspoken strategy here is, I am 100% sure if this ever goes to trial, we're going to win in a slam dunk. I know lawyers hate using those kind of words, but I'm absolutely sure of it. So the ulterior motive, I feel, is that the process is the punishment. That, taking all this oxygen and time and tens of thousands of dollars of money to defend ourselves, that's the punishment, whether this bureaucracy wins, loses, or draws. That's my feeling, at least, Sheila.
Well, and when you say the process is the punishment, boy, are you ever right, because the process is skewed against the person who doesn't, like me, who I don't have the presumption of being innocent until found guilty, and I don't have the ability not to testify against myself. I have to, if they compel me, I'll have to show up, but I won't. And if they want my documents, I have to produce them, but I won't. And this doesn't actually go before a real judge. We're trying to drag them before a real judge so that we can actually follow some real legal proceedings. This is a quasi-judicial kangaroo court. The investigator can make the determination that you're in violation of the law, and the investigator then dishes out fines. The investigator who's investigating me just a couple weeks ago, in one day, dished out $91,000 in fines to a leadership contestant for the UCP. So, I mean, the cards are really stacked against me, and I can't fight back without the help of everybody at home. And the website to help me and to see the video is savesheila.com.
So really, Sheila, what you're saying is that this bureaucracy is very much like a human rights tribunal, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a kangaroo court where the odds and the financial wherewithal is stacked against the defendant, and it's a kangaroo court that thinks it has the powers of a real court in terms of everything from issuing a publication ban, as we've seen out in BC regarding that father with the whole transgender child case, when in fact we don't think they have the letter of the law in their favor of doing so. I mean, it's the entitlement, Sheila, right? It's not only are these guys bullies, but the fact that they seem to be thinking that they are entitled to powers that are beyond their bailiwick in the first place. So anyways, I do hope we do get further donations on that. This is an extremely important fight to fight, folks. It's about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, which is under attack in this country and in the West almost on a daily basis now. But we have to pick a hill to fight on, and this is a good one because we can't let this go unchallenged. But switching gears, Sheila, they say summer in the news business, it's the silly season. I think the real world gets back into shape come the day after Labor Day in September. And so sure enough, earlier this week in Toronto, there's this little cabal of Marxists called Extinction Rebellion. And I went out to see what they were all about. And what they were all about was shutting down a major intersection of Toronto, King and Bay, right in the heart of the financial district, at the height of rush hour, and preventing hundreds of cars from, getting to where they want to go. These are people going home. These are people that want to have dinner with their families. Ironically, Sheila, in a perverse way, when you shut down traffic that way and you have hundreds of cars idling emissions are the very worst emissions to come out of a tailpipe as opposed to a car maintaining, a normal cruising speed or a highway speed. So, again, their methodology is self-defeating in terms of getting the message out. But when I ventured into the crowd, the people who would talk to me, the word unhinged comes to mind. We're going to roll a clip because this fellow had a solution that involves radically altering our lifestyles. Check it out.
If you look at primates that are our genetic relatives, they don't use those stuff and they're healthier than people. They have less cancer rate. Cancer rates are through the roof. Depression rates are through the roof. A lot of illnesses are through the roof. Stuff are not getting better for health.
So let me get this straight. You want us to live like gorillas then?
I want us to live without cars and pollutants. I want us to live in
like a gorilla.
In a sustainable manner. I want us to live in a sustainable manner, and I'm saying that gorillas are proof that we can do that.
Sheila Gunn Reid, you'll never make a monkey out of me. I'm holding onto that steering wheel. You'll have to pry it from my cold, dead hands if you want me to give up my car. Can you believe this?
No, I can't actually. It's these people. I mean, okay, 100% chance that this guy calls himself a male feminist, right? Like those things go hand in hand. So he wants us to live in a patriarchal society run by some silverback named David Menzies because gorillas. Is that what we're doing here? Tell me these people aren't anti-human. Tell me they aren't anti-human, anti-progress. Like gorillas. Gorillas don't get depressed, David. Gorillas don't have cancer. Gorillas pick ticks out of each other's hair. That's what gorillas do, and that's what they want us to do. God help us.
Well, but Sheila, the thing is, when I look at the sheer logistics, I mean, for example, gorillas, of course, are not indigenous to Canada. So that means our 37 million populace has to leave this patch of land and go to, I don't know, the Congo. And that brings up another issue. The billions of humans who live in non-gorilla friendly territory crowding into those territories remaining on Earth that are gorilla friendly. I think that brings about another problem, don't you?
It's like these people have never seen a gorilla. Like I would love to crowdfund a trip with them. So let's all go to the zoo and you can stand behind the glass and look at the gorilla's life. Yes, gorillas are lazy, like I anticipate these people are, and they don't do much with their day. So yeah, they're sort of like environmentalists that way. They don't smell great, again, like environmentalists, but they basically like laze about with their legs in the air and just eat stuff, defecate in front of people and pick at each other. That doesn't sound like a good life. That doesn't sound like a stimulating lifestyle to me.
Yeah, poor Darwin, he must be rolling in his grave. But in case we have it wrong, Sheila, if this is the way to go, I want to make a public on-air apology to Mr. Rick Dees, who, of course, in the 1970s scored a top 10 single, talking about the kind of future that Extinction Rebellion guy envisioned. Let's throw to this clip of some magical music from the swingin' 70s. Oh, Sheila, the cheeseometer just exploded. I mean, that song, like I said, I thought it was a novelty song. I didn't know that this was the template for our future. But I think that song, that's one of those things from the 70s, much like the polyester leisure suit, powder blue tuxedos, and the AMC Gremlin. They're never coming back, right? But my goodness, like I said, was Rick Dees simply a DJ who was cashing in on the disco craze, singing about animals like gorillas and ducks? Or was he a visionary, Sheila, in terms of human evolution?
He's an oracle. Rick Dees is an oracle. Okay, we have a super chat from El Chupacabra for $20.99. He says those city slickers wouldn't last a day in the bush living like a gorilla. Keep up the good work, you two. You know what? Isn't that the truth? It seems to me the people who want us to live without fossil fuels are the least likely to survive. They're the least likely to have any sort of survival skills or wherewithal outside of their IKEA furniture building, which makes them think that they're good with tools. It's just these people, gorillas. Like, of all the animals you could have picked, too, gorillas. Like, gorillas, the stinkiest, tick-ridden of all the primates. That's great.
Unbelievable, and thank you for that donation. And you know, the other thing, Sheila, I want to point out, I hope hopefully we have this clip. When you talk to the Extinction Rebellion people, they're always talking about the science. And by the way, I should say, when I called them Marxists, I wasn't kidding, because part of their speech, when they were blocking traffic, it delved into racism. It delved into colonialism. I don't know what that has to do with climate change, man-made or otherwise. But then I spoke to a person. I'm just going to call this person a person because I don't want to misgender this person, because I'm sort of unsure where this person is on that spectrum. And suddenly we went from science to divine intervention. Check this out.
Global warming, bro. Would you consider what's happening in Alberta in terms of the production of oil worse than how the Saudis handle their oil industry?
Actually, I would, yes.
Really? Okay.
Because, first of all, I don't know if you know anything about the tar sands. Do you know what it is?
Yes, I'm aware of that, but I can tell you,
What is it?
well, you just...
It's forest, and then they kill all the trees, and then the layer of soil is enriched with oil. They have to separate it, okay? And they use all these chemicals, and they call these tailing ponds, which are supposed to be in things that are not supposed to leach into the environment. But are you going to tell me something that's as big as Lake Simcoe or bigger is not leaching into the environment? You know what Mother Earth did? Mother Earth caused a fire in that whole area. What's the name of that place? What's it called?
Fort McMurray?
Fort McMurray burned. And why? Because Mother Earth said no more.
What would be the...
Where do you begin? Sheila, first of all, I'm kind of offended. Are we supposed to still call Mother Earth, or is it like Person Earth right now? And what do we call Father Time? I don't know if Justin Trudeau's rewritten the gender descriptors for those two elements, if you want to call them that. But Sheila, you're much closer to the oil industry in Fort McMurray than I am. Can you please correct this person on what this person was saying?
Okay, I was a little distracted by that person's hairy armpits, and I know I should have been paying more attention to what he or she was saying, but just the armpits. Anyway, when someone says tar sands, you know that they don't have a clue what they're talking about, because that's the pejorative. It's their oil sands. It's the world's largest oil spill cleanup operation. It's very close to the surface. So we're taking the oil off the land and making the land arable again. If you've ever been to Fort McMurray, you can see all the reclaimed land. They reclaim it to be boreal forest, and then they graze buffalo on it. We're actually fixing a problem vengeful Mother Earth has created. And we don't use, well, in some instances they do a lot of chemicals, but most of the tar sands, oil sands, are extracted using steam. Just heat up the oil, separate it, bring it to the surface, without a lot of ground disturbance at all. But you know, that person presented themselves as an expert on the topic and then didn't even know that the place was called Fort McMurray. It's so
and you know
funny.
what, Sheila? I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say, I'm going to bet the ranch that this person has never been to Alberta. I double down on that bet in saying that this person has never been to Saudi Arabia. And yet, here he is saying that, yeah, the Saudis are better at the environmental stewardship in the production of oil. I ask our audience out there, if you haven't already done so, our beloved Commander Ezra Levant wrote a book called Ethical Oil, where he makes a brilliant case that the way we are producing our oil in Canada, we owe nobody an apology. So it's really kind of amazing to me that someone so ignorant takes the moral high ground when, like you said, couldn't even remember what city Mother Earth decided to burn down for the evilness of Alberta.
Yeah, I mean, and they tell me this stuff isn't a religion, but boy, they sure sound like a doomsday cult. I bet you in our super chats here or in the chat, there are some Canadians who are, like so many Canadians right now, taking their oil field expertise overseas to work. One of my oldest, dearest, best friends in the world has been working in Saudi Arabia and in northern Iraq in the oil patch, taking his Canadian expertise there. They are routinely under fire. They have bunkers that they have to go to when they're working in northern Iraq. They hear shelling at night all the time. But that's where our Canadian guys are working right now, because yahoos like this seem to be in charge of making the policies with regard to Canadian oil and gas. My husband was an expat for a time working in Kazakhstan, and there's no better people in the world with the expertise in the oil patch than Canadians. That's why they're in such high demand. And there are a lot of Canadian men and women out there who have worked in these other countries who know Canada is the best at what they do.
You know, I mean, that is great, but on the flip side, it's sad because of what federal government policies have done to your province in terms of getting who knows how many billions, maybe more than $1 trillion of liquid gold out of the ground into market. It's a travesty, and hopefully that will come to an end if there's a regime change come October. But moving on, I guess related to the...
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you because we got super chats and I don't want to lose them. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got one from MVP, gives us $8 and says it's a small contribution towards Sheila's fight. Thank you very much. Like David said, every little bit helps. We don't really have any deep-pocketed backers. It's usually just small donations, one at a time, from people who care about what we're doing. So thank you very much. We've got one from Chris Semchuk for $10 from Kingston, Ontario, and hoping that Canadians wake up and vote insanity this October 21st and make it Trudeau Must Go Day, because Trudeau is bananas at People's Party of Canada all the way. Well, you know what? I think we're down to anybody but Trudeau.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts right now? I mean, Sheila, we're less than 3 months away from an election campaign in politics. 2 weeks is an eternity. Who knows what's going to happen? But when you look at the tea leaves right now, what do you think? How are you leaning in terms of what's going to happen on October 21st?
I think we've got a 50-50 chance of getting rid of Justin Trudeau.
Yeah,
I think...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, polling looks okay.
Oh, we have a little technical glitch there, Sheila.
Yeah, sorry.
There we are. Well, I can tell you, I was so... before the SNC-Lavalin scandal broke, I was actually thinking it might be another Trudeau majority. Now I don't think that's possible. I think it's a matter of whether he'll get a minority or the Conservatives will get a minority. That's where I stand now. Like I said, there's so much time going up to October 21st. Who knows what new scandals or discoveries is going to come to the fore. And really, like I said earlier, the mean season will begin the day after Labor Day when society is back from summer barbecuing and whatnot. But moving on, you sent along a very interesting story this morning to me, Sheila, about, I guess it's a sort of... these are people that would be kind of related to the Extinction Rebellion people, and that would be our good friends Antifa. And evidently they're taking their act on the road, and one of the states they're going to in the USA is Texas. And of course, the saying down in that Lone Star State is don't mess with Texas. I wonder how things are going to go with Antifa when they bring their thuggery to that particular state. Any thoughts, Sheila?
I'd love to start a crowdfund to help them get there. Because this could be the end of Antifa. Like, they are going to maybe take care of the problem of themselves for us by going to Texas. The article sent you is from Red State, and they say they're leading a border resistance militancy training tour that will converge on a 10-day siege. They use the word siege in El Paso, Texas. And the promotional image they use shows border enforcement officials being killed and government property firebombed. Organizers are asking for white comrades to pay for others.
You know, Sheila, I don't know what Trump is waiting for in terms of getting the process rolling and declaring this group a domestic terrorist organization. That's clearly what they are. I mean, we're all about free speech, you and I and everyone else here at The Rebel, but obviously when it comes to acts of violence, not just advocating violence, but being violent, and that is Antifa's bailiwick. They have beaten people to an inch of their life. This is, Antifa, of course, is a contraction of anti-fascist, but I've always said their name should be FA for fascists, because that's what they are. They're fascists. They don't believe in debate. They don't believe in civil discourse. They believe if you have an alternative viewpoint to them, we will shut you down violently. I think that is the textbook definition of a terrorist, Sheila.
They really are a terrorist group, aren't they? They are encouraging the use of violence to forward their political goals, their far left-wing Marxist political goals. That's the textbook definition of terrorism. Like you, I am completely for free speech. I encourage Antifa to never, ever, ever shut up, because I think people need to hear every stupid word that comes out of their mouth so that they understand exactly what they're dealing with here. But yeah, this calling for violence, calling for the death of border guards who are already under siege, having their reputations absolutely destroyed by the likes of AOC. It's absolutely atrocious, and it is high time that Trump drops the hammer on these guys. We do have a couple super chats, and I don't want to forget them. Okay, so we've got one from Primpal08, gives us $5 and says the Tarsans ate my homework. Yeah, there's nothing they can't do. And we've got one from Robert Terwilliger. Bob Terwilliger, isn't that the name of Sideshow Bob on Simpsons? Anyways, he gives us $20, and I don't see a super chat. So thank you very much.
Oh, short and sweet. Well, thank you so much for that. The other problem, by the way, Sheila, I have with Antifa and certain adherents to the Islamist agenda is the use of masks in public. I think unless the date on the calendar is saying October 31st, don't wear a mask in public. I don't think it should be tolerated. And I say this, Sheila, because the very reason we have an open and free society where we don't have law enforcement on every second block saying, your papers, please. One of the reasons is, of course, that we can identify each other. If I were to come up to you wearing a mask and slug you, you are at an inherent disadvantage in getting justice rendered because you don't know who did it. It was just a guy, I think, about 6 foot, but I don't have any facial recognition clues for you. And this is a problem. And we saw another example of that in the UK where, there was a gay pride parade. Ezra's gone on about that this week, where you had a woman in the full burqa screaming all kinds of insults to the gay marchers. And, I don't think she committed any crime, but had she committed a crime, how do you identify her with the other hundreds of people in that neck of the woods wearing exactly the same garb? So I would really like to see, as much as I want government out of our lives, I don't think this is right to have people concealing their identity in the public square. You want to dress up, do it at your temple, do it at home, do it at a recreation center that you paid some time to be in, do it on Halloween. But, typically, at least when it comes to Antifa, the reason why they are wearing masks is so that they don't pay the price for their egregious, violent actions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's the same in Ontario. Maybe it's just the fact that Alberta is being plagued with a rural crime epidemic right now because of our, bad economy and then the social problems that causes. But I know most gas stations, including my local rural one, they don't really want you to come into the store with a hoodie up because it obscures your identity. If you think masks or facial coverings aren't a problem, try to wear one into the bank and see how that goes. There's a reason why they don't let you wear those things into the bank, and it's because if something happens, they need to be able to identify you. That woman who is yelling at the gay pride parade, no one will ever identify her. No one will ever find out where she works or what she does or who she works for, what she does for a living. And that's really protecting her from the social justice mob, isn't it? On the flip side, if, let's say, a Christian preacher had done that on the streets, and God forbid, don't do that. It just looks bad on people. But within moments, they would have been identified, employers called, church called, family identified, Facebook archived, everything. But you can't do that with Antifa because they are taking steps to get around the exposure that they rightly deserve.
And Sheila, one of the things you said about, going into a bank with a mask, I agree. If I'm wearing a monster mask, that even if it is Halloween, that's going to raise all sorts of concerns. But I will tell you this, Sheila, and this is not conjecture because it's been done in the past with banks and with jewelry stores of male thieves decked out in the burqa walking in, because here's the dilemma. I'm a teller, I don't like this, this doesn't seem right, but am I going to press the silent alarm? Am I going to be the one on CBC News of the Islamophobic bank teller who didn't embrace cultural diversity, who thought that these could be ne'er-do-wells? And indeed, banks and jewelry stores have been robbed by the bad guys donning this haberdashery to, get in there, sort of like to hide in plain sight, if you will. And, my heart goes out to the people in these industries because it's almost, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you did raise a ruckus, you know what's going to happen, don't you, Sheila? And I can tell you this, going back to my Sun News days, we did that test. We have government-controlled liquor stores here in Ontario, and we had a minor, a 15-year-old, put on a burqa and go into 3 LCBO stores and buy hard liquor, no questions asked, and not even asked to unveil, not even asked to provide identity. And I know what's going through the heads of those liquor employees. Oh, look at that, Mr. Producer, Johnny on the spot. There you go. That's a big 40-ounce bottle of Sambuca, if I do believe. There's the $50 bill being
That's how you know. That's how you know that kid was 15. He was buying Sambuca.
Hey, what's wrong with Sambuca?
Nothing if you're 16.
I think when I was in Italy, that was the first hard liquor. So he's even got the glove on.
Oh, yeah.
And if you go onto YouTube, folks, I'm sure the video archive exists. So this is yet another reason why mass in public, whether it's Antifa or whether it's part of the fabric coffin, which is the burqa, should not be tolerated.
David, you're forgetting one of your greatest, most beautiful stunts ever. And that's when you went to vote.
Yes.
I hope they find this clip. When you went to vote wearing a full burqa, and for some reason, God only knows, you carried a purse. And you went to vote, and you just handed them your ID, but they never asked you to lift your veil to show them that you were indeed the person that you were producing ID for. And I don't blame them. I mean, you don't want to lose your job or get dragged before the Human Rights Commission for asking someone to remove their burqa so you can confirm their identity. But you tested this for us firsthand.
But Sheila, you're bang on. What is the point of photo ID if you don't match the person with the mask with the photograph. That could have been anybody with that photo. Unless you do that matchmaking, photo ID is irrelevant. And you know what? You're right. Oh, and our fantastic Mr. Producer always there I go. I thought I really cut a fetching figure as a.
I still don't understand why the purse.
but I mean, and this is very troubling, Sheila, because our democracy is dependent on a non-rigged voting mechanism. We don't want fraud. We don't want somebody in a mask voting multiple times, which is potentially what could happen if you're not matching the picture on the driver's license with the person producing the driver's license. And maybe it would be worthwhile redoing that test this year to see if Elections Canada has learned its lesson, or if it's business as usual. And if it is, shame on them. This should not be tolerated.
I bet you it will be even easier this time around, if that were even possible. But we have a super chat. Okay, we have one from Jason, who gives us $50 Canadian. Holy cow. And says, good luck, Sheila. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jason. That's so nice. And, and whatever the amount is, we appreciate it. But
absolutely.
And by the way, speaking of the garb associated with the Islamic faith, I see there's a story in the press this morning of Banana Republic trying to be diverse and inclusive and culturally sensitive by selling hijabs. And lo and behold, they're being condemned because some of the models in the ads where they're displaying the hijabs, I believe one female model, Sheila, now, brace yourself, folks, I'm not making this up. She had a short-sleeved shirt on, and I mean, I don't know, Sheila, I'm a heterosexual man. When I saw her elbows, I went like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I went, wow, it's almost like pornography at Banana Republic. So yeah, the two things is cultural appropriation for having the temerity to sell a hijab. And I think we're about to get to one of the, there you go. Look at that. Holy mackerel. Well, what are they trying to do? Link Islam to a nudist colony or something? Look at those arms. Sheila, it's kind of sad because we had very recently, late last month, that wonderful lady, Miss Michigan, the former Miss Michigan, who was stripped of her crown for allegedly tweeting Islamophobic tweets. She talked about she was on campus and she went to the wear a hijab booth, and she politely declined to put one on. And she made mention of the fact that, is that what this is now? It's just a fashion accessory? When you see women in Iran who are forced to wear this, and in acts of civil disobedience make videos of them taking off their hijab at great cost, I might add, that can result and has resulted in women going to jail in Iran for several years for defying the so-called morality police. So why is a company in the West like Banana Republic normalizing this? And isn't it just so perversely ironic that to the perpetually offended out there, even when they do this kind of normalization and diversity is our strength stuff, they get condemned nevertheless?
Well, yeah, and I think that sort of takes us into our next story that we'll get to in a second about Gillette. But
oh no,
it's so bizarre on some level, because they sell rosaries at the dollar store now in like the junk jewelry bin. I think, well, welcome to what it's like to be a Catholic when your religion is just sort of commercialized into frivolous throwaway fashion. But on the other hand, women are being locked up and beaten in the streets, and beaten in jail and subject to public flogging and imprisoned, I think, in one case for up to 15 years. And Iranian jails, they're not like Western jails where it's just basically like a housing that's behind a fence. These are horrible, horrible places to be. That's what's happening when they choose not to wear a hijab. I mean, for the fashion industry, an industry that says it's about women's empowerment and women's choice, to be marketing these tools of oppression that much of the Islamic world, the women don't have a choice but to wear these things. I think it's appalling, to be honest with you.
I agree, Sheila, and we have seen in the West honor killings because of a young daughter defying her parents' wish to wear this. And it should be pointed out, and don't take my word for it, please reach out to a Muslim scholar, that nowhere in the Quran does it mandate anything like the niqab, the burqa, the hijab. There's lines about dressing modestly, but that doesn't mean putting yourself into a body bag. This is very much a recent invention of some of the worst Islamist states that are out there. I'm thinking Saudi Arabia, Pakistan. I don't think we should be taking our moral cues from the likes of those people, Sheila.
No, absolutely not. But we have actually a few super chats that we should get to before they disappear. We've got one from Kevin Bank for $5.
Thank you.
Says, thank you for all the freedom of information work you do. Freedom of speech and media forever. You know, it seems as though these days the bulk of the work that I tend to do is freedom of information work. And I think simply because nobody else is doing it. Nobody else in the mainstream media with their deep pockets and subsidies and grants and from the Trudeau government, no one is asking the questions that we do. And we try to ask questions that you would ask around your dinner table. Hey, I wonder if they actually looked into this, or I wonder if they actually studied this, or I wonder how much of that cost me. Those are the kinds of questions we ask the government all the time. And these days, more often than not, we're getting a lot of good, interesting information about just how terrible the Trudeau government is these days. And so thank you for your $5, Kevin, and I will spend that filing another Freedom of Information request.
and Sheila, no one is doing a better job at this than you are.
Thanks.
You have done such incredible work. And like you said, it is only by going through the FOI process. But you have to wonder this. With the CBC getting $1.5 billion of taxpayer welfare every year, they certainly have the financial wherewithal to do these kind of freedom of information requests, because sometimes it can be quite costly once you see, you know, they charge you for the photocopying, and it can, sometimes a quote can be in the hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to get the documents. Yeah. Why aren't they doing this kind of work? And here we are on an incredibly modest budget doing it.
Oh, they'll start doing it again once there's conservatives in power. They'll start asking these questions. It's just like how all the journalists in the United States found their intellectual curiosity once Donald Trump was elected. I mean, they're on a break. They'll find it again. And these freedom of information investigations, they're a lot of work. Yep. To get the information I give you in a 5-minute video at home or a 6 or 7 minute video, I'm reading through sometimes 1,000 pages of freedom of information requests just to get, to find the one email that is the new information, the shocking information, the information that obviously makes Justin Trudeau look like the idiot that he is. It is a lot of work. We have a researcher helper who's very, very intrepid. But it is really just sitting in front of a computer, scrolling through PDF pages all day long to get the information. It's a lot of work. I can see why the CBC doesn't want to do it, because it's a lot of work and they're de facto government employees. So work is, they're allergic to it. But I think it's really valuable work.
Yeah, and Jason, our helper, as you mentioned, Sheila, he is fantastic. And I should point out too, the other problem with the FOI process is when you get documents that are redacted, they've got magic marker concealing supposedly private or confidential information that they are allegedly not at liberty to reveal, or simply they say, we're not giving you those documents. I found that out last week, Sheila, when we were trying to, we have an incredible out-of-control theft problem. I'm going back to, people might think I'm flogging a dead horse here, but the Liquor Control Board of Ontario has an incredible policy when it comes to shoplifters, which is to say, hey, can I hold the door open for you? People are walking out of these stores with millions of dollars of liquor in it. And I should note, Sheila, it's not just destitute rubbies going in for their next fix. It's actually entrepreneurs. And why not? What an incredible business model. If we had the Sheila Gunn Reid Menzoid liquor store, imagine how profitable it would be, Sheila, if we didn't have to pay for the stock. It's pure profit on every bottle we sell. We went through the FOI process, and for 5 reasons, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but they were all intangible reasons. One was privacy and confidentiality of what? The thieves? The LCBO denied us that information. Now, look, if Costco or Walmart, if they had a shoplifting problem, they're under no obligation to answer our questions. They're private companies. The thing is, when it's a government-run liquor corporation, we, the people, we're the shareholders, we're the stakeholders. We have a right to know. And so far, they won't tell us. The Ministry of Finance won't tell us. I've reached out to Doug Ford, tragically, for someone who campaigned on transparency and respect for taxpayers. He's not getting back to me. And all I have now is a figure from the union, and I don't know how they came up with this number, but they estimate the theft to be $77 million a year of liquor just going out the door unpaid for, because the LCBO has this policy of, basically open borders. If you want to pay for it, great. If you don't, oh well, what can you do? And I think that is absolutely despicable. And since, Sheila, you live in a province, thankfully, that has a privatized liquor system since going back to the 90s, I'm going to go out on a limb here and think that if I walked into a private entrepreneur's liquor shop and decided, hey, sorry, mate, I want this bottle of scotch, but I'm not paying for it, I don't think that's tolerated, is it?
No, you're going straight to jail. What a great opportunity, though, for Doug Ford to finally kill government-owned liquor stores.
Yep.
Like this problem at almost $100 million, I bet, a year. I mean, let's be real. What a great opportunity for him to say, look, we've got a problem here in these government-run liquor stores because they're government-run. Whatever, maybe there's certain policies with regard to theft that they can enforce, certain liabilities that the government would be responsible for. Let's get out of this because the taxpayer's losing here, and let the private sector deal with it. That way, if the private sector has a theft problem, it's not our problem. It's a perfect opportunity for Doug Ford to use this to privatize the liquor system. And I wonder why he's not. Does he just not want to go up against the unions? As an Albertan, it is shocking to me that working in a liquor store is a skilled government union job. I mean, I can't even fathom it, actually.
It is amazing, Sheila. And that used to be the case, of course, in Alberta prior to privatization, too. But you're absolutely right. But, my dream is for the dismantling of this liquor bureaucracy. There's when you think of what you want government to do in your life, policing, the armed forces, I don't think you want government being the retailer and the marketer of beverage alcohol, or for that matter, lottery tickets. There's another great government monopoly that they have in this country. I prefer the Nevada system. You regulate it and you tax it, but you let the private sector do everything. But the thing is, Sheila, the way these monopolies justify their very existence is through this phrase they call social responsibility. That means, oh, well, if you gave the right to sell liquor to the private sector, you're going to have 14-year-olds drinking Colt 45 in the parking lot, getting hammered. So we, the government, we answer to a higher authority. We're beyond merely profiteering. Yet, by this shoplifting story, just think of how that destroys social responsibility. So if you had an underage kid going to the counter and being challenged on his age to buy that booze and he couldn't make the challenge, well, he doesn't get it. But if that same underage kid just walks out the store without even going through that's okay. Sheila, this is clown world.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Kathleen Wynne during the election campaign when Doug Ford was making musings about liberalizing your liquor regime in Ontario. She was saying stuff that were like straight out of the Prohibition era. Like all the while, her party, the Liberal Party, albeit federally, is liberalizing marijuana laws and putting marijuana stores on every corner. She's talking about how the government has a social responsibility to keep dangerous beer away from 17-year-olds. I mean, it was really quite bizarre and, completely, it was like she thought there was some sort of internet firewall around Ontario where you couldn't find out that people over here in Alberta, we're not like neglecting our kids because there's a beer store in our community, or because Sobeys has a liquor store, because liquor is easy to buy. I don't have to drive 50 miles to get beer and then buy it on banker's hours. It was like she didn't think that you had the information coming out of Alberta to make a decision about how you wanted to run your liquor system. We have a super chat, though.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay, it's from Desert Mav, and it's $4.99. And they say, as an Arizonan, thanks to you folks, I've learned all about Canadian politics. I love when we have international viewers. Keep fighting the good fight. Hang in there, Sheila. We won't be silenced.
Fantastic. Well, I do too. I mean, and it's amazing, this business, Sheila. Sometimes you film a report, make a commentary, and I liken it to putting a message in a bottle and tossing it in the ocean.
Yeah.
You just never know who's out there, who's going to see it. And it's incredible when you read the comment section, as I try to do for all our videos, and you see comments from Arizona, from New Zealand, literally all around the world. And, it's great to get that feedback, 100%.
Well, and I think, too, the more Justin Trudeau makes an international jackass of himself, the more people are interested in hearing what the other side of the story is here in Canada. They're sort of drawn to see what Justin Trudeau's critics are saying, because the mainstream media is certainly not being critical of him. They want to see, well, how do, run-of-the-mill Canadians feel about Justin Trudeau's, his performance in India, his constant preening on feminism, every chance he gets, his bizarre climate policies. I think we might be really one of the only go-to sources for that information for international viewers.
It seems that way, Sheila. But you know what? I think that's a great segue into another topic that's near and dear to your heart. Of course, we are, that is to say, those with a conservative viewpoint are increasingly under fire by the Silicon Valley tech titans in terms of the political bent of our communication. And one of the latest to feel the wrath was a story that you passed along. It was Apple banning your, I think it was one of your favorite sites, Sheila. Maybe you can take it from here and inform us all what's going on here about the so-called intolerance.
Sure. I got my headline from the Daily Caller because I love Tucker Carlson, but also because they're a great source for news. They say Apple News banned a top pro-life news source in the country from its platform yesterday, claiming the organization displayed intolerance towards a specific group. That's interesting when you're that's an interesting way to put the fact that you're banning a Catholic website. Anyway, the Apple News platform is a free news app, and they banned LifeSite News, which is a huge news site, by the way, Wednesday, just 1 week after accepting the pro-life outlet onto the platform. They say that LifeSite News channel does not comply with Apple guidelines, and their content showed intolerance towards, quote unquote, a specific group.
First of all, the first question, obviously, since they don't identify the specific group, is who is the specific group, Sheila?
Well, they don't say. They didn't provide further reasons to the Daily Caller News Foundation, but LifeSite's editor-in-chief, John Weston, said, "We are a pro-life, pro-family website, so perhaps they think we show an intolerance to women because we protect the right to life of the unborn, or maybe because we're pro-family and we believe that marriage is between one man and one woman."
So really then, what Apple News is saying is that we're intolerant of this particular viewpoint. As much as, we love diversity, we don't love diversity of opinions, and we're going to show you how much we don't love it by banning you off our site. I think, they might be the intolerant ones here, Sheila. Correct me if I'm wrong in my analysis.
Well, yeah, what an interesting way of putting the fact that you're banning, I would say a traditional Christian, but I would say LifeSite is a pretty Catholic website. And so it's funny how Apple is suddenly shocked to find out that a Catholic website might actually hold Catholic ideals when it comes to the rights of the unborn and family values, traditional family values. Apple News will publish any manner of deviancy on the other side of the conversation. Transgender kids, all like drag kids, they publish that, no problem, no questions asked, in the name of diversity. But on the flip side, they won't allow a website that argues maybe those things are bad for society. It's bizarre, but this is the passive censorship of big tech, right? If you get all your news on your Apple News app, you're not getting access to these stories that talk about the damage that pushing the idea of drag kids has on not just kids, but society as a whole. You'll never get access to that if you're getting your news from one of the largest news apps there are out there.
And Sheila, it's not just Apple News. It's Google, it's YouTube, it's Twitter. I mean, last month I talked about how John Lott Jr., the author of More Guns, Less Crime, was kicked off of Twitter because he was tweeting about the New Zealand mosque shooter and talking about his background, the fact that he was an eco-terrorist. And he was kicked off of Twitter for not going along with the politically correct narrative about that shooting. And what was incredible is that if you look at this story, Sheila, Twitter sends out a notice to him. You have violated, I'm paraphrasing now, but you have violated the community standards of Twitter. You have been suspended for the following reasons, : and then there's nothing. And then John Lott appeals this. And after the appeal process, it says, we stand by our decision. You have been banned from Twitter for the following reasons, : nothing. I mean, you can't even get an answer from these people. And I think as we move forward, as we see more and more of this is going to be one of the top news stories, especially in the United States of America, which has the First Amendment, which protects free speech, and that is, the level of public discourse in the public square, or in the cyber square, if you will, and how it's being shut down. And I think, Sheila, that these tech companies are playing a dangerous game with their belligerents because Washington, they have the means to enact the antitrust regulations if they deem them too big. That was what was done over a century ago with Standard Oil for breaking into 33 companies. But anyways, that is on the horizon. Mr. Producer tells me we're almost out of racetrack here, Sheila, and you have more super chats to read. So take it away, my friend.
Okay. So we got another one from Primpal08 for $5 Canadian on a story that we talked too much and didn't get to, and that is about Gillette getting woke and going broke. I think they lost $8 billion since they decided to be feminist. Ooh. It says their new target audience. So soy boys and rabid feminists. Interesting choice since neither of these seem to shave. Isn't that beautiful? It's so great. And okay, there's one more for you, David. This one's for you.
Oh.
5 pounds. David, do you think, it's from Observer Dude, by the way. David, do you think you'll meet Jordan Hunt again and will be assaulting you again, maybe by throwing some soy milk at you?
Jordan Hunt, no. No, sir. Basically, Jordan Hunt likes to go after women as the target. When a man is asking questions, the extent of his assault on me was... you remember that video, Sheila? I don't know what it was. It was some little novelty gun, maybe that you'd see the Joker use in a Batman comic, where confetti was shot out on me. I guess I should have hammed it up. I should have pretended to fall down the stairs with the force of this confetti. But there's doesn't, what a way to end this segment on. I mean, you can have a viewpoint that is considered politically incorrect, and you will be silenced by either Silicon Valley or the state. But a guy like Jordan Hunt that goes around physically beating up, kicking women because they happen to have a pro-life viewpoint, well, we'll give him 8 months probation and just please stay away 200 meters from the next pro-life demonstration. What a joke. And I believe we have one last super chat, Sheila, and then we're going to have to wrap.
Oh, yes, it's from my friends at Proud Boys Calgary, $6.99 Canadian. Recently got a straight razor. Never need to buy an overpriced woke Gillette blade again. They deserve every penny of that loss.
100%. And I think what did it for me was when you had the latest ad where it's the transgender woman going to guy, I think it was, having his or her first shave with her father, which is something that all boys and men take part in, that first shave. Man, that was it. Well, I was already not buying Gillette anymore, but I think for the remainder of people that were giving them benefit of the doubt, they're just doubling down on this PC wokeism stuff. And the market share, says everything. One more super chat, Sheila. You're not done with me yet.
I know we can't wrap up the show because everybody's so generous. It's from Matt Dugas and gives us $69.99 Canadian.
Wow.
No super chat. Holy cow, so generous. You know what? It's good when we have the super chat money rolling in, because then it doesn't seem like we're just slacking off while the boss is away on a special mission. We can at least look like we're trying our best to pay the bills. So thank you, everybody, for your generosity today.
Thank you so much. And that was indeed very generous. So, Sheila, we have to end it there. I want to say to you and to our entire audience, have a wonderful long weekend. And you will see the main man, Ezra Levent, back in this chair next Friday. Everybody have a safe and fun weekend. Good day.